From Colorado, Vince McMahon has been called a hypocrite by many former executives and talent in shoot interviews. His statements to the talent and the fans, the PR spin, the rewriting of history in documentaries, does not hold water. He also has done some really messed up stuff, like hiring people, then humiliating them, and then firing them. Let's see if we could shorten this here a little bit. He is ruthless, smart, yes, but ruthless. Also has a seemingly distorted point of view. WWE booking is inconsistent, not logical most of the time. It turns off most viewers from the product. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they still pull 4.5 million people every week. You can say the booking is shitty, but that's the problem. That's the problem right there. It's not turning off enough people. So there's no incentive for them to make it any less shitty than it already is. Triple H, before he became an executive, was accused of burying many rising stars. In the past, wrestlers who could have become big stars were arbitrarily buried and or punished for doing what Vince says, grabbing the brass ring. This has also been pointed out by many former WWE people, talent who have been depushed, mishandled, and or worse. These stars are over, have talent, the it factor, yet are prevented from rising above a certain level. Look at what's happening to the Wyatts, what happened to Ziggler, Barrett, Drew McIntyre, RVD, Test Rikishi, and others. Now look at how Triple H is trying to protect rising stars, how he books on NXT. It's nothing like Vince. It's starting to look like superstars that Triple H wants to protect and grow are being mishandled on the main roster. Is Vince McMahon the real reason that WWE has gone downhill? Not Triple H or any politicking stars like Hogan, Cena, and the above. In other words, is Paul Levesque's bad reputation amongst fans misdirected or just wrong? If it wasn't for Triple H, would legends like Warrior, Bruno, and others be making peace with WWE? First of all, you're all over the place with this question. You tackle 3 or 4 different things here, one that doesn't even have anything to do with the other. Yes, if it wasn't for Triple H, they would not have made peace with Bruno. They would not have made peace, most likely, with the Warrior, because Vince had already tried dealing with these people before, and these people basically said, fuck off, we don't like you. And so he had given up. That's what Triple H tells the story about wanting to talk to Bruno, and Vince is kind of like, well, hey, give it your best shot. Do whatever you want to do if you want to waste your time. I think that was what Vince said to Triple H. If you want to waste your time, then go right ahead. Because Vince had already given up on the idea that Bruno wanted to have anything to do with him or the company. The heat was between Vince and Bruno. Triple H stepped in kind of as the peaceful intermediary, and they made something happen. So yeah, if it wasn't for him, Warrior and Bruno and maybe even some others wouldn't have come back into the fold. But that's a completely separate issue. Is it because of Vince? Look, whatever you see on TV, that's Vince McMahon's product. Nothing that makes television happens without Vince McMahon signing off on it. Whether it's his idea or it's an idea that the writing team or Triple H pitches to him, the one thing we do know is that Vince is the end-all be-all. Triple H says it in every single interview that he does. When people try to compliment him and say, one day you're going to take over, or we love what you're doing with NXT, and why, can't the main product be that way? And he says, at the end of the day, it's Vince's vision. What he says goes. If Vince McMahon goes to The Undertaker 4 hours, according to Shawn Michaels, before the Undertaker-Lesnar match at WrestleMania and says, you're losing this match, then guess what? You're losing this match. And that's just the way it is, because he's the boss. You can argue with him, you can try to give him your point of view, and maybe you can even convince him to come around to your point of view, but if not, you do what you're told to do, because that's what you do. When you go to work, you do what your boss tells you to do, no matter what you think of your boss. And if you don't like it, quit. That's how life works. So whatever you see on television is Vince's vision. What we've seen lately is a lot of really bad stuff. Bad acting, things that don't make any sense. And that's on Vince. That's not on anybody else but Vince McMahon. So yeah, you can blame him for a lot of that stuff. But when there's good stuff, you can blame him for that too. When the Shield was kicking ass every single week, and they were having those awesome matches in the Shield and the Wyatt feud, it was Vince. So you can't say when we have the Bella Twins and Jerry Springer in the ring, fuck Vince McMahon, this old fart, he's out of touch, he should step down. And then when the Shield and the Wyatt family are going at it and everyone's creaming themselves, you can say, God bless Triple H, Triple H is our savior. Like, it's Vince. Like, you can't have it both ways. You gotta blame him for the good and you gotta blame him for the bad. It just so happens that lately there's been more bad than good. They've been in this funk. ever since SummerSlam. And some of you guys would say that it goes back even further than that. I would say since SummerSlam, because there was some real good stuff to build up heading into that pay-per-view. Ever since then, I have been unimpressed and uninspired by anything that we've seen on Raw. Anything. So, will things be different when Triple H ascends to that position? If he takes over one day from Vince? I hope so. If NXT is any indication, I think the future is in good hands, but who knows? You know, there's a big difference between running an entire company and running the main roster and being responsible for a television show on USA Network that 4.5 million people tune into every week and trying to maintain that audience, as opposed to going down to Full Sail University a few times a month and overseeing one or two people probably who write the whole show and put together some basic storylines, which is what we see on NXT, that happen to make sense. There's a lot more responsibility involved with Raw and SmackDown and the pay-per-views and everything else. I almost hate the fact that, you know, when that day comes, it would take Triple H away from NXT. But yeah, I hope that when that time comes, that things are going to change, and maybe he has a different philosophy than Vince does, and now he's the boss, and so he doesn't have to answer to the old man anymore, and he can do whatever he wants. I mean, he can bring back War Games if he wants to, right? That was the big story from years ago. Triple H is an old-school NWA guy, and he pitched the idea supposedly once to Vince about bringing War Games in, and Vince said no. He tried, he fought for it, but Vince said no. So I don't think anybody really knows. I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows. I don't even know that Triple H knows what he's going to do or how things are going to change if Vince, God forbid, were to die tomorrow, and if Triple H was anointed his replacement. We just don't know.